Hi, I'm Erin Lundy.
And I'm Madeline Walden, and this is
Aquarium of the Podcific,
a podcast brought to you by Aquarium of the Pacific, Southern California's largest aquarium.
Join us as we learn alongside the experts in animal care, conservation, and more.
Welcome back to Aquarium of the Podcific. It is an emergency episode today. We have a huge update on the young and the Nestless. Season two update by our first reoccurring guest on the podcast. We're joined by Aviculturist Ashley Loper. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, happy to be back.
Thank you for joining us. We heard you had some scoop.
All right, I'm back with some hot new gossip.
What's the tea?
So the tea right now is happening mostly in our alcid colony, which if you don't know what an alcid is, that is our diving bird areas. That's a family of birds that includes puffins, pigeon guillemots, murres, auklets, all of those diving birds you would see in the Northern Hemisphere. So here our tea concerns the horned puffins this season. So it is currently our breeding season for them. And they are all kind of establishing where they are going to be nesting. So if you've never looked at our habitat, there's actually little tunnels that lead back into our nest boxes there. And they all have little boxes. There is more than enough for everybody. However, one of our puffins has decided she wants to nest in this weird, awkward little cave. It is not what I would pick. I mean, I guess it's fine. She is sitting there, but it's like this tiny little hole in the side of the exhibit. And it's meant, I think, to control some sort of plumbing. There is like there's a pipe in there and there's like a open and shut off valve, but she has been there a couple seasons now. And that is her
She's
place
like,
to
this
be.
is it.
It's
actually.
location.
Apparently.
The side of the exhibit is a hot location.
There are plenty of open, I'm going to call them real nests, but she has refused them every single
Why
year.
would she? This cave is perfect.
Yeah, I guess so. It can fit one bird, and it is her.
So which bird is this?
That would be Daisy, the horned puffin.
Daisy, what are you doing? So
Daisy girl.
Does Daisy have a mate?
Daisy does not have a mate, so I guess she just needs a single home for one. And this little thing works fine.
I was picturing one of those very like industrial style lofts that people live in with like the hose valve in the middle. And she's like, honestly, I just designed around.
It's very industrial and
It's
functional.
open concept.
She very diligently collects nesting material. We give
for
them like
herself.
fake little plants and stuff. Yeah, for herself. So it's very homey in there.
Yeah, cozy.
You know, she's doing her best with it. But where things kind of the plot intensifies here is that I started seeing another puffin hanging out in that spot. So I'd come in the morning and I see a head poking out of there and I assume it's Daisy. And the bird came out and it was not Daisy. So it was another puffin named Hef. Now, Hef does have a mate. And they have a burrow together, a very nice burrow. They are a very established pair. So I was like, well, he's probably just house hunting. You know, they're like checking their options.
This one's already furnished. I mean,
Somebody brought all this nesting material. So I'm sure he's house hunting. And this will kind of die down once his mate lays her egg. They're established. They're going to go in there. They're going to leave Daisy alone. It won't be a problem. They have now laid their egg. And guess who I saw in there? Last week is Hef, who is sitting in Daisy's burrow, and Daisy's hanging out outside of it.
Yeah,
I don't
where's
think
Daisy in all of this?
right. She just watches.
Whoa,
she
she's
just
plotting.
seems very confused by it, but she's not like aggressive or rude about it. She's like, I guess. But then it got me wondering, and this is purely gossip at this point. This is purely bird gossip. This is me spreading rumors.
this is puffin gossip.
This is Puffin Gossip, the podcast.
I feel like I have two options here, which is Hef is either just having like a man cave bachelor pad moment away from the nest. He's chosen that. Or option two is he has a little girlfriend on the side.
He's at her like little apartment.
Yeah, visiting. Well, his current real wife is like at home on the egg.
And who is his mate? Sorry.
His mate is another horned puffin named Bruiser.
Named Bruiser. So Bruiser and Hef
Bruiser and
on
Hef.
the rocks, potentially?
Maybe. But then, okay, here's where it gets even weirder.
It doesn't end there.
This morning,
never
Bruiser was in the weird nest. And Hef was on the egg. So I don't know what is happening anymore.
This is thrilling.
They're so much fun. They're one of my favorites. So I'm happy to talk puffins anytime.
That's amazing.
It's crazy to me how the social dynamic of these birds is so, in some ways, very human. You know, you're like, hey, this is my apartment. I've got this cute little studio. And then this like older gent just kind of is like, you know what? You're cute. You have a house. I'm going to be around it. And that's just, they're very progressive.
It's a progressive habitat.
They can be. And then there's, like any of the birds, you'll get some of the occasional shakeups where they're like, actually, I am going to go see what the neighbor's doing over there.
Goodness.
So are puffins a type of animal that tends to mate for life and they have the same pair over like the course of year after year? Or do they choose other mates.
In general, they mate for life. So I have worked with pairs before that were together 20 plus years.
Cute.
So they can be incredibly faithful, but just like with any pair, sometimes things don't work out and they will repair with a different individual.
They're a little less faithful.
Yeah. So
they're monogamish.
I feel like they mate for life in the way humans may mate for life, where sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes you meet a cute girl who lives on the side
got
of
her
the
own
exhibit.
apartment and living it up on the east side.
Maybe
Poor
so.
Bruiser.
Now, on the flip side, we do have some very cute, well-established pairs. My favorite at the moment is our pair of tufted puffins. So we have Monty and Naya, and they are both like senior citizens. They're both considered geriatric for puffins. They're in their 20s, but they are so cute together. So you might have seen Naya posted on social media
Yes,
a little bit ago.
with that beautiful picture you took. That was a great,
you.
that was a great photo.
But she's quite a princess. So Monty pampers her. Like, he's always grooming her. They're always laying together, and he's just like preening her tufts and preening her little back feathers. And not once have I ever seen her preen him back. So she's a
Good
queen.
for her.
It's a relationship to strive to. You're just like, he takes such good care of me.
She's a princess. She deserves
Yeah,
it.
but I love them. They're very cute.
We have some very old animals in our Alcid exhibit, and I think people, you know, I don't think people often look at Alcids or puffins and realize they can live as long as they do. But it's crazy to be like, yeah, we have a couple puffins in their 20s, and we actually have quite a few that are.
Most of them, I would say most of the animals in that habitat are considered geriatric.
That's crazy.
At this point. So it's like a little retirement community in there.
So if you visited the aquarium before, the habitat we're talking about is in Northern Pacific. It is called diving birds. What other animals live in there? Because it's not just puffins, right?
It's not just puffins. So we do have, like I said, that whole family of birds is called alcids. So within that family, we have auklets. We have a crested auklet in there at the moment who's very cute. So he's one you might walk by and he's got this crazy little like Elvis hairdo going on with his feathers. Kind of hangs out like almost like a quail on top of his little head. So
Those
that's a
are my
crested
favorite.
auklet.
Oh.
And then we also have pigeon guillemots in there who, depending on the season, can look drastically different. Right now, everybody's in breeding plumage. So it's very pretty. They're all these really striking like black birds with white shoulder patches. But then if you come in the off season when they're not breeding, they're gray and white and salt and peppery looking. So it's a pretty dramatic change that they go through. But all of those birds are related to puffins, but they're all quite different. So it's a very diverse family.
Fascinating.
There's one pigeon guillemot that looks different than the other pigeon guillemots, and in the cutest possible way.
Oh my gosh, I know exactly who you're talking
Who
about.
am I referring to?
That is Pepper. So all of the other pigeon guillemots are black and they have a little black beak. And Pepper has a bright orange beak. She's got a little genetic mutation where she doesn't have melanin in like her beak and her toenails. So you get that orange color and she's got clear toenails. So she definitely stands out for the rest.
She got the clear acrylic on.
One time somebody sent a picture to our like group chat that we have with just a picture of a bird's foot and they said, who can name this animal? And I saw it was the clear toenails and just from this foot picture
Instantly you
I
knew?
knew it was Pepper.
Oh my gosh.
And I still get made fun of when people will send me an animal foot
No, you
picture
just
and be
know
like,
you're
Ashley, what animal is this? It was one time, you
but
guys.
like also you're probably right every time they text you. Like you're studying.
I sent Ashley once a picture that was probably 3 pixels big of some sort of bird of prey, and I was like, "What is this?" She's like, "It's a Cooper's hawk," and I was like, "How can you tell?"
That is my brother's favorite game. He loves to send me terrible bird pictures and see if I could find out what they are.
So
And you will.
I'm undefeated so
And
far.
listeners want to send the aquarium some just random bird pictures.
Let me just give you Ashley's number. It's
Redacted.
redacted. Bleep.
I think it's a really worthwhile game. I think we should just start sending any sort of animal foot to Ashley, and then just
I think actually that would be a very fun video as if we sit you down and we show you we're doing it.
Ashley is actually an avid birder, and she knows quite a bit about different species of
Ashley
birds.
does so much. She just starred in our pelican release video with the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center, and it was great. You did awesome. How's that?
That was really awesome. I have never gotten to work with pelicans before, but it's certainly a species that I have a lot of love for. Like I have brown pelicans back in Louisiana where I'm from, and then we have them here in California. So it's a bird I grew up seeing, and that means a lot to me. So being able to help them when there was a time of crisis and help our neighbors at Wetlands and Wildlife was really awesome. And I really saw those birds at their worst when they were first coming in. And I got to see them at their best when they were being released into the wild. So I really got the full spectrum of experience. And it was cool to feel like I was making a difference in our local bird community.
The question I have for you that is entirely unscientific, but I think is a question I get asked a lot. What does the like flappy guy on a pelican, you know, like their throat? Yeah. What does that feel like?
It's so weird. I feel like it feels exactly what you would imagine that it feels like. It's just this weird smooth skin.
Does it feel like if you pinch your elbow skin?
I feel like it's softer than that. Like it's really like soft, and it feels so thin. Like when you're handling the pelicans, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't like tear. And that's like a very common injury you see with pelicans too, as they go after like fishing gear or something, and that pouch tears surprisingly easy with some of that sharp gear. So it's very fragile.
Fragile neck skin.
Well, yeah, I was talking to you when we were at the release and at the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. They seem so delicate, like their beaks seem so delicate. But then I was watching them just fly open mouth into each other. Like, and
They're
just
not
be totally
graceful.
fine. They're funny animals.
Yeah, it's weird. Birds are like sturdy and delicate at the same time, where you're like, okay, I have to hold you a certain way, and this feels scary, but if I don't, you're going to hurt yourself. But if I hold you too tight, that could also hurt you. It's a very fine balance.
One thing that I learned about pelicans, about how to handle them, is when you are holding them and restraining them, obviously the beak part is the bitey part that can hurt you. But if you hold their beak closed, they actually can't breathe. Their nostrils or the nares that you see do not function as well as you think they should. And so you have to hold their mouth slightly open or else they can't breathe. And I was like, that is the funny. Like, why can't you?
You've got such a giant mouth. Just holding it shut. That's all it takes.
You can't breathe anymore.
Yeah,
so.
that seems like a design flaw.
Yeah,
Who made this?
Millions of years of evolution, and that's the best we got.
So there's weird animals, and all the animals. I think a fun game would be like, what does this feel like on different animals?
Yeah, I don't feel like that translates well to an audio medium.
That's fair.
But we have gotten really good
fun.
at being very descriptive in what things feel like, such as an octopus feels like a wet gummy bear, and everyone's like, I know exactly what that feels like. You have told me that a sea lion feels like a wet horse, which I love.
That is very accurate, actually.
Not touched a wet horse or a wet gummy bear for that matter, but
what is the weirdest feeling part of an animal you can think of
any animal
that you have touched?
Any animal that I have touched. Oh, that's a hard question.
Right?
I've
Gotta
touched
be
some
the-
weird animals.
The pelican goozel's got to be one of them.
is that what it's called, a goozle?
No.
If you want the real word, it's a gular pouch.
Oh, okay, got it.
Don't worry, frogs have gular pouches
Oh,
also.
wow.
That's what
Oh,
you're
really?
seeing when you see
Frogs
that.
and pelicans are basically the same, confirmed.
Listen, we're learning frogs are just like every other animal, truly. You
I'm
bring
like,
it back to
that's
frogs.
exactly like a frog. So it is
It's
a gular pouch.
true. It's true. Well, it's been an exciting month in bird world, I guess. You had the pelican release. We have these new shenanigans with our alcids. What about penguin world? What's going on there?
Yeah, we need a season 1 update on all of the couplings and all of the things that were happening last year. Have they been good this year?
Surprisingly problem-free at the moment. So we did not have a lot of scuffles or anything going on during breeding season. Our pairs were all stable and faithful to one another. We did have Gats was single last season, and Roxy is also newly single out on the beach. So those two were both single and male and female. Roxy took her sweet time deciding to come up and build a nest, but she finally decided to. She moved in with Gats. I don't think either one seemed particularly thrilled about it. I think they were just the only option. And Roxy is Gats' mom, so it's like he moved back in with mom and was helping. They felt a lot more like roommates than mates, which is preferred. But that was the only, I think, weird thing that we had going on.
That's pretty big.
Right, you got to move in with mom again.
But I will say, if they want to make it to season 3, we're going to have some more shenanigans. So
I've
they
got-
gotta get.
We're going to shake up the beach. With Gats and Roxy I think a lot of people ask, like, can they tell that that's their parents? Do you have any understanding, or can you give us insight into whether or not penguins can tell if they're related or not?
I think initially when they're chicks they can, but kind of as they grow up, I don't really see any parental relationship that I've ever observed going forward once the chicks are like fully fledged and on their own. Like I've seen parents bully their former chicks. Be like, you're on your own, get out. I feel like there's any fondness necessarily there. I think they just treat them like any other penguin.
Got it. Poor Gats.
Poor guy.
Gats is always the hot single on the beach. Like, he is always with someone a little bit, and then he has never quite settled down.
He really hasn't, and he wasn't very helpful. Even when Roxy laid eggs, I don't think I saw him sit on the eggs one time. He was like, "You're on your own, mom. Those are your kids."
What's the gossip around Kate and Robbie? How are they doing together? The it couple on the beach.
They are the it couple, and they still got it.
They still got it.
They are still going strong.
Adorable.
Very cute, very beautiful.
I think that there is another subset of birds that has gone through breeding season pretty recently that seems to also have a little bit of gossip surrounding them, and those would be our avocets.
Ooh, you're right. I didn't think of them initially, but they certainly got a little spicy this season.
Ooh, spill.
So avocets in general, when it comes to breeding season, the hormones fire up and they just become incredibly territorial. So a lot of times if we have them on our shorebird habitat, they will start defending a territory towards us, the keepers, and towards all of the other birds. And they do get pretty intense and they're yelling at you all the time. And they're kind of just like flying at you. And you're like, oh my goodness.
What does it sound like when they yell at you?
It's just like a high-pitched... Oh man, I'm gonna have to do an avocet impression. I don't know it, but it's really like beep, 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 beep.
It's adorable yelling.
It's good. It's like kind of little, just like beep chirps, but like very rapidly beep chirping at you.
Get out of here.
While flying at you.
That's fair.
Yeah, they got long legs and a long beak, and it's quite a thing. So this year for our avocets, they have been in what we call our upper wetlands area. So that is, I'm going to say, on the bottom floor outside in the aquarium, kind of by Shark Lagoon. We have a heron in one section, and then in the upper section is where we had the two avocets together. And we were like, okay, this is great. They're going to be by themselves. There's not going to be other birds to bully, and they can nest. It's going to be awesome. But I think in the absence of other birds to bully, they decided when hormones got really high that they were going to maybe chase each other a little bit. So they were very hot and cold. It was a little toxic. So sometimes they would be great together. They'd be building a nest together. And then
they just destroy it.
Yeah. No nest. Surprisingly, the female, I guess, hormones.
I have them.
We got them. So the female was chasing the male quite a bit and trying to like hit him with her wings to the point she actually started to like hurt her wings a little bit. So we did make the decision to separate them because we saw that going on. And we kind of
toxic.
Had to intervene. I know. So that was a lesson that we learned this year is even by themselves, those hormones do not go away. They will direct them at something, and that something can be one another.
I feel like we need like a stuffed animal in there for them.
That's
to be
what
like,
I thought. I was like, can you get like a
guy.
decoy avocet to be like, why don't you like
gang up on this guy.
waterfowl?
You just put a picture of an avocet in there and it just is like punctured over.
Yeah,
and over
I feel like you
again.
just have to unite them against a common enemy.
Exactly. Nothing brings two people together like a common enemy.
Right. It's
Truly.
very
or
bonding.
birds.
Nothing brings two avocets together like a common stuffed animal. It's so interesting how much birds have this like super involved social dynamic, and then the seasonality really impacts their behavior. Like, it is wild because most of the year, totally fine.
Totally fine. They could be in shorebirds. There's no issues. Everybody lives peacefully. But for some reason, breeding season kicks in. And those, different birds, different things going on out there.
You know who's never involved in the drama? Who? The grebe.
You're right. He's so
the
good.
least problematic bird.
Minds his business. We got a new bird out there recently.
Hot single.
Hot single. She's been a fan favorite already and a staff favorite. And that is our white-faced ibis Gladys is her name, which is the greatest little name. Yeah, she's super cute and just like an unproblematic queen. She settled in perfect. She's not like shy towards people. She is very curious and comes anytime you put something new in there. Like we just put new plants and she was the first to come just like stick her little beak in all the plants and check everything out. So she's super cool bird. And if you catch her on a sunny day, you really see all of her colors, especially if she's like bathing or spreading her wings or something. And she's a stunning little bird.
She's like iridescent.
And she was a rescue. Yeah. So I think she was found here in Long Beach with some pretty significant injuries. She had some gashes along her back. She had like a broken collarbone. And so she went through it. She was like a child. She was a juvenile little ibis, but they were able to heal her. They just can't release her because she couldn't fly, so they were able to reach out to us, and we had a little home for her.
That's so wonderful.
And she's doing so great, and we all love her a lot.
She doesn't create any problems.
No, she's
so good,
so unproblematic.
Like just the ideal gorgeous bird. And unproblematic. The dream. You can visit her in our shorebirds habitat. That's next to Ray Pool. Is that right?
Yep. It's next to penguins and Ray Pool.
if you visit off-season, you will be confused as to why they are called white-faced ibis, because they are totally green and black and iridescent and not at all white-faced.
Yeah. It is a weird name where people are like, what's that bird? And you go, oh, it's a white-faced ibis. And there's no white on its face. I'm like,
not.
I didn't name it.
I'm just messing with you.
Last week I went up there and she does have a little
She
bit
does
of
have a little. It's still not what I would
really?
say is like the most prominent feature, but there's another very similar looking ibis called the glossy ibis. So I guess that name was taken already. So it's like, this one's face is more white.
So,
a tiny bit of white.
Yeah.
does she just molt twice a year to change color, or as her feathers kind of grow in, are they like ombre
It's
from
pretty
white
subtle.
to
So her
green?
body feathers will stay pretty much the same. It's just that little bit of white on her face. You'll just see it gradually like transition to being a slightly more dramatic little mask.
Gorgeous.
And then it'll slowly like transition back at the end of breeding season to no mask. It's like a little secret identity.
Are there any other animal species names that you have a problem with because they don't really fit the actual animal?
Oh, there's so many.
I'm sure.
Especially in birds. You're like, that's what you name it. Like there's a duck called the ring-necked duck. If you look at it, you're going to be like, where? Where is the ring? And apparently if you see it in certain light, you could see kind of the essence of a ring on it.
If you imagine a ring on its neck, you can see it.
You're like, that's what we named it. Okay.
Someone just put a ring on its neck and they're like, it's a ring-necked
a ring.
duck.
Yeah.
And then they took a neck off it.
You're like, done.
I
Name.
discovered a new species.
Like some make total sense. Like you'll see a blackbird with a yellow head. You're like, yellow-headed blackbird. You're like, that one
Boom.
total
Red-winged
sense.
blackbird.
Yeah,
Totally
red wing.
get
What's
that
that
one.
blackbird with red wings? It's a red-winged blackbird.
All right, sick. I
Period.
get that.
Or one of my favorites is somebody texted me one time and they said, there's a bird outside my house and it sounds like a cat. What is it? And I had to tell them that it's called a catbird. I was like, that is why.
I'm not messing with you. I'm not being sarcastic.
It's like, this is so for real. Like you could Google it.
This is a catbird. That's so funny. Birds are crazy.
Who gets to choose? You know, like who's like, yep,
I
this
think we
is...
need to put you two in charge.
I want to choose.
I would name the frogs terrible things. Like speckly brown frog, slightly more speckly brown frog. I actually do have beef with whoever named mountain yellow-legged frogs because the yellow is so inconsistent.
You're right.
Where the juveniles, it's just tan. And I have, weirdly, my main guest complaint is that their legs aren't yellow.
Oh, sorry, we'll
I'm
paint
like,
them.
I'm sorry, I didn't know. And it's funny because people will be like, they're not yellow. And I was like, they get a little yellower when they grow up.
Sometimes they're...
Yeah. And there's a couple where it's more, but like, again, it's like the suggestion of a white-faced ibis is similar to the mountain yellow-legged frog. So, but California red-legged tree frogs, very red legs. So whoever did that, great job.
Good job. You
Great
can
job.
stay. We'll keep you.
It is odd whoever gets to name those things. Well, I learned more about birds today than I ever thought.
I know it's going to be just like a little short and sweet episode, but we crammed in a lot of information.
Bird
Anything
time.
else exciting going on with these guys?
What's your favorite bird thing happening right now?
I think my favorite bird thing happening right now is bringing it back full circle to the puffins. I love puffin breeding season because they have so many cute little courtship behaviors that they do. So you'll see a lot of my favorite thing that they do is called billing. So it's where they kind of rub their bills together and it's very cute. So you'll see pairs do that, but you'll also see them like flap their wings at one another. So you'll see one do it and then somebody else will be on like the rock below them and they'll open their wings. And it's kind of something they can do.
That's the mate.
It
Back and
can
forth,
either be between
usually.
mates or it can be between two that are like subtly beefing with each other.
I'm bigger than you. No,
Yeah.
I'm bigger than you.
Right, where it's like, it's over, I have the high ground. So you'll see that. You'll also see them like head toss at each other. So they'll just subtly like toss their head back at one another. Or like they'll bill gape and they'll open their mouth and kind of show the inside of their mouths. So if you see the pigeon guillemots, it's actually really cool. It's an all, like I said, all blackbird with white shoulders. But when they open their mouth, it's bright red inside.
Cool.
And they'll do that as they like call and vocalize or just to one another. They'll open their mouth and you just see that little flash of color. So I just
cute.
love watching all the different behaviors going on in that habitat this time of year. And everybody looks so beautiful with their breeding plumage. There's so many different colors. The tufted puffins have their glorious like tufted hairdo going on.
They do.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you could tell us a little bit about the difference between the tufted and the horned puffins. I know the tufted, it looks like they have beautiful long eyebrows almost.
It does. Yeah, it's very stunning.
I thought of them as eyebrows.
I always think of really, to
Like
me, they look
eyebrows,
like just like
pigtails.
really long eyebrows.
It totally does. And they are, it looks very hair-like, but those are still feathers. They're just really
Wow.
modified feathers. Yeah, that look hair-like. It does look like they have little hairdos going on.
Someone got those like eyebrow transplants from their head hair, and then they grew them out.
Crazy, again, another transformation is they lose those. Those completely go away in non-breeding season, and they just turn into these weird blackbirds, to the point that like I have had people who work here and who know those birds come up to me and go, "Did we get a different bird? What is that?" And I had to break it to them that is a tufted puffin in not breeding season.
I know
it's very dramatic.
That molt is subtle and gradual, and then it becomes very obvious. But I love the idea that you just find this blonde eyebrow on the ground. Like one day it fell off.
You want to know my favorite treasure to find?
Yes, please.
So both of the puffin species do it, but it's a little more prominent in the tufted puffins. They get this little sheath on their bill. It's called a ramptheca. And it like grows in for the breeding season, and it's a little covering on the base of their beak, and that thing will completely like slough off at the end of breeding season. Like it just falls off, and you'll find it. Like I found one on the Habitat last year, and I was so excited because I wanted one. I kept it. Yeah, I wanted one for so long. So it just totally falls off. With the horned puffins, they have it, but it tends to flake off a little bit more. It doesn't always fall off in one pretty piece. But the tufted puffins, that's the whole treasure you get to find.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So cool.
That is cool.
Is it true that their eggs have sort of a unique shape to them? Is that the puffins, or is it some of the other
murres are the ones that have the egg that's a little bit more pointed. So puffins will to an extent, but it's not as like pointed, and elongated. But murres will definitely have kind of more of a cone-shaped egg, and it's because they're cliff nesters. So if something knocks it, the egg's gonna. I know. Why would you lay your egg on the side of a cliff?
It's like the most
This
fragile.
is also perfect.
This is my child. I'm gonna lay it on a cliffside. And
That is birds, though, right? Like,
yeah. Have you seen a pigeon nest?
you mean the one stick that they lay their egg in?
Perfect.
Yeah, but the cool thing is, though, if their egg does get bumped, it will kind of just roll in a circle and not off of the cliff because of the way that it is shaped.
Do we still have that thing upstairs?
We do, yeah.
There's a display with 2 types of fake eggs that you can see how well one rolls off the cliff and how not well the other one does. And that's the shape.
Yeah, since puffins nest in burrows, theirs doesn't need to be quite as like cone-shaped. But for the cliff nesting guys, theirs does have usually that little rolly.
Do puffins dig their burrows typically? Like, how do they create?
They can, yeah. So they can dig out burrows, or sometimes they'll just kind of get under like a bush or something and kind of dig it out.
That would be me as a puffin. Like everyone else diligently done it. And I'm like, I'm
This
just
is
under
fine.
a bush. This is good.
I like the cave idea. I like Daisy's plan.
Yeah,
Right?
Or maybe not.
I'm not
maybe
going to
not.
crawl through a tunnel. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm just going to hop in this little opening, and that's good enough.
Does her little nest cave preclude you from using that hose?
Well, thankfully, it's not a valve we ever have to use or touch. Like, I do not fully know what it goes to. So it doesn't. I guess
for
it's
show.
fine. It's not what I would use, but it sure is what she's doing.
That's thrilling. We're going to need to stay updated on this.
We're gonna need a picture of the inside of her home, the industrial
If she'll allow
furnishings.
it.
I got to put her on blast.
Daisy's like, don't come in here. Well, maybe Hef will be in there.
Yeah, we'll find out. Or Bruiser.
Bruiser's gonna be scrolling on social media and be like, Hef, why are you and Daisy?
Ooh, the scandal.
Honestly, pretty good. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you for that
you're
quick little
welcome.
update. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you in season 3. You got to come back and give another update.
Sounds great.
We'll have to catch up on all of the bird tea that happens.
There
every
is
season.
always things happening in Birdland.
I think that's why I like this as like a comprehensive, what is happening with all of our
what's
birds right now
Can you
episode.
tell us?
And some
update?
of it's so silly. Like, it's just silly little things that
They're
they
birds. It's silly.
It's also subtle, and really you would probably only be sensitive to it if you see these birds
Every
almost
single day, yeah.
And you're like, you're in a weird
do.
nest.
Yeah, why are you there? That's not where you live.
Well, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Ashley.
You're
See you
welcome.
next season
See you next season.
on Young and the Nestless.
We need to make a theme song.
But we do need Young and the Nestless theme song.